JDR News Live.
The human brain is made for thinking, not humic experiment. It's hardly a tinker toy or experimenting. Start humic with drugs.
Why do we talk about marijuana? It's the single biggest drug that is a source of some confusion.
This is really about educating the public about the fact that marijuana is a less harmful drug.
Marijuana, that's to get high.
You can be as high as you want.
The prohibition of marijuana over the last 71 years has not actually prevented you from using marijuana.
You feel weak.
Closer to winning the war on drugs.
I do believe there have been some successes.
We will never arrest our way out of this problem.
Welcome to JDR News Live. It is a Wednesday here in the fantastic Mile High. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm your host, John Doe. You can find our shows at johndorad.io. If you missed anything, you'd like to go back and listen to something else, you'd like to go back, correct something I said, and get proof that I actually said it, because you know it is recorded and all, head to johndorad.io. It's our fantastic website. Also, big thanks to our sponsors. Big thanks to the JD Army. We could not do it without you. Thank you for listening to us, hanging out with us here on the John Doe Radio Show as we bring you up to date with all the news that's going on around wherever around is. You know what I'm saying? Another crazy farkin' day here in the United States. Another goddamn big old shooting. I don't really like to talk about things other than cannabis inside this show, or at least cannabis-focused things, but it's just going on right now, and it's hard to ignore. It puts this just huge damper on what you're trying to do and everything around you. There's a lot of things that you can sit down and try and take in and not worry about and, get into your whole mojo as you're, like, maybe doing your job or you're starting a podcast or whatever it is, but then something like that is just different than almost anything that happens. Especially as a broadcaster, I can remember sitting down back at my desk, listening to police scanners or talking to police officers. The crazy thing is, I think that's the one people that see things raw more than first responders, more than firefighters, more than police, are actually news people. Because the raw footage that they go through, the news that's sent to them, the people that they have to talk to, the stories that they hear, those things are raw and unadulterated, unedited craziness a lot of the time. And it can hit you extremely hard. I remember I was in the 850 KOA newsroom doing my internship when the Iraq War, around the time that the Iraq War had first started, and news footage of this beheading came through. And one of the things with this beheading was like, here, hold a second. Let's put this down there and this down there. One of the crazy things about the newsroom was we got this raw news footage, and it was images from the Iraq War. Basically, what was happening was we had multiple feeds, I should say. There was TVs lined up all across the front of the newsroom, and at least 10 of these TVs are hooked up to raw feeds or footage that was being sent over by news reporters that were embedded in the Iraq War. Because as you remember, it became this big, huge program for the military to embed reporters inside the Iraq War and inside units with the Iraq War to send back live footage and keep the American people close to the action that was going there, to basically reaffirm what they were doing was right, which in the end now seems kind of fishy because, and another reason they were probably trying to do that, try and pull some wool over your eyes, because there wasn't any weapons of mass destruction. The reasons why they went there in the first place turned out to be just completely bunk. So that footage was probably part of their plan to help it out. But either way, what came from that was just some incredibly gruesome footage. And not a lot of that footage has stuck with me, but there's one thing that got sent through that I felt like, as a news reporter, it was like something that I had to watch and had to kind of get out of the way for future news, because as I'm working in 850 KOA, and sorry, I'm not trying to make this about me or the non-cannabis for this show, but something to talk about. Break the monotony a little bit. We'll still get to the cannabis news, but I felt like as a news reporter, if that was something that I was going to be seeing time and time again, because at the time I was trying to be a big news reporter, something that I really wanted to do with my life and something that I thought could still happen at that point in time because radio wasn't completely bust. News reporters were still getting paid. It was the last year for that, really. The next year, everybody was like, oh, fuck, we got to get a different job. But as I'm sitting there, and we're working for 850 KOA, I'm working for Clear Channel, I have great ins. It's possibly something could have done and enjoyed and not worried and bitched about my job. Wouldn't have been able to pay the rent with it. Would have had to have 5 other jobs with it, which I guess is, no, that's not fun at all. So anyway, I just felt it was something I had to do. I was in a great place to be able to become, a larger reporter, a great place to be able to see footage that a lot of other places don't get to see. Usually, when this type of footage comes in, there's a couple big hubs that they send it to. And if other places request for the footage, we'll send it to them. Otherwise, that footage is edited down into production pieces, put inside the AP wire as raw footage. Just tons of stuff that is done with it, but generally it's not sent out as a complete whole and streamed. There was times, though, that people could log into this AP live stream, and the stuff that was coming in, if they had codes for it, they had logins, they were allowed to, then they could basically catch this feed too. It was spider-webbed out into many different places. But specifically, what we were at 850 KOA, because it was such a large news source, we were cutting up production pieces and live news stories to send off to news agencies all over the world. I get chills thinking about it right now because it's crazy how important at that time it was for people to get these images and how scary some of these images were. And I guess to make this damn short story I was trying to make into a longer story and try and cut it off a little bit sooner. The first beheading, the guy's name was Michael Berg, and it was something that rocked the American public. Something that now doesn't seem like it would be crazy for another group to do to an American because we've seen it so many times since then. Goddamn timing of Work to Do. All right, let's put it over here. It's too serious of a conversation to be dealing with Work to Do. That's an upbeat, get the party started type song. Anyway, that footage had come through. Felt like it was something that, had to be watched. I had to take a look at, and anyway, saw this footage, and to this day, it's still something that sticks with me as the most horrendous thing I have ever seen in my entire life, and I've seen some crazy shit. I wasn't prepared for it as much as I thought I was prepared for it. And with what's happened in Colorado Springs a few days ago and what's happening now in San Bernardino, it's something that can shock the system. It's two things that are happening extremely close to home at once. This one seems insane if it's happening, if it started where developmentally disabled people are. And that's where most of it went down. I don't know. I haven't read too much of it. I just kind of watched some news highlights. That shit's just crazy. You got to think, like, what the hell is happening inside the United States? What's happening to our country? What kind of direction, which is even the scarier part for a lot of us, is what kind of direction your leaders are going to take with some of these rules. What type of situation are we leading ourselves into? Jeebus, man. All right, let's get to some cannabis news. Should we bring back in Work to Do? I think we should probably bring back in Work to Do and actually fire this mamma jamma up correctly. How about we do that? Yeah, I say we do that. All right. Today, in JDR News, we got some fantastic news for you. So take a deep breath. Take a hit off that ball. We'll get back to it. It's all right.
You're now listening to Melodies.
First and foremost, I forgot to get to our sponsors. Can't be doing that. Weedbiz.net. Thanks to Weedbiz.net, those fantastic dudes over there helping us host our website and host the shows that are recorded. If you'd like to, head over to Weedbiz.net. They've got some news from the South for you there. They've also got these awesome grow pods that are available. If you'd like to get a hold of them, just message our good friends over at Weedbiz.net. Fantastic grow pods. We're not talking about something that's cheap. It's something that's a piece of crap. We're talking about something that you can put inside your business, inside your warehouse, that will guarantee you, if you've got the learning, I should say, you've got everything prepared inside your brain and knowledge that you need to be able to grow something. These grow pods will grow it for you, and they'll get her done. Go to weedbiz.net, and they'll take care of you. Big thanks to yourgraphics.com, Your Graphics on Facebook. Head to URGRAFIX on Facebook, and they'll take care of you. Tell them JDR sent you. Jessica Trim will design a brand new website for you. If you need WordPress site having issues with, she'll take care of it. You need some advertising, some images created for you, for someone else. Maybe you're an agency looking to get something. No, I'm just kidding. If you're an agency and you need a graphic designer, then maybe you shouldn't be an agency. But she could do it for you. Maybe you're looking to hire a new one for your agency. URGRAFIX.com. Holler at them. Last but not least, our good friends over at USACannabisConsulting.com. John Doe Radio, brought to you by USACannabisConsulting.com. Holler at them, USACannabisConsulting.com, if you need help navigating your way through this system, which is getting more and more complicated every day. Something interesting about that complicated part of things is that...
You're now listening to A-Rod music.
Oh, we got to get rid of that one. The beds are screwing us today. Something interesting about not having knowledge of the industry or being confused about the industry, and I guess generally what I'm talking about is our collective knowledge as a whole. Because here's the thing. You may be super knowledgeable, know what you're talking about, but 90% of the custodies coming into this game don't necessarily know, and a lot of the questions that they're asking they don't know where to go to get the questions asked, so a lot of the questions are open-ended. They'll ask on Facebook, or they'll ask their friend that doesn't have a clue either, but he heard from a friend of a friend of a friend's friend that this is true, so that's what's being passed along. Collective knowledge. I'm sure you're aware of what collective knowledge is. It's exactly what kind of explained a little bit. But either way, our collective knowledge is kind of going down quite a bit as more and more people come into this industry that aren't necessarily involved in the industry before or involved with cannabis at all. Don't know anything about growing, don't know anything about the rules or the laws. And it's kind of, you could definitely notice it. Because you could, like I said, see it on Facebook, see it on Twitter, see it wherever you go, basically. What's, I guess, good about that is there's people coming in to learn about cannabis and learn about growing and all that good shiz, but there's still this learning curve that we've got to get around. Another one that we've got to get around. Because before, when we sat down and did what we're doing in Colorado, it was like from 2009 till, I don't know, it felt like about 6 months to a year ago, we kind of overcame this learning curve. And maybe it was a little bit before that. Maybe it was right before legalization went through, right before the vote for legalization went through. It felt like we kind of hit a certain stride here. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to explain. Things were smooth. There was nothing really going on. Implementation was going on great. And that's part of the reason why people say our program is so successful. It's because of periods like that. Because of the end of kind of a growth rate. And then legalization came through, and we started to hit this hook of, okay, how are we going to implement legalization? How are these programs going to go into play? And currently, the biggest thing I think that we're dealing with, and what states all over the country are going to be dealing with, not just Oregon or Washington, not just a legal state with recreational weed, but we're talking about medical cannabis, because this story about recalls, by the way, another recall for Edipure again yesterday. So if you'd like to, head to the Marijuana Enforcement Division's website or search online, really is kind of the better way to go, because I know it's hard for some of you to navigate through the Marijuana Enforcement Division's website, but Edipure has another recall going on. This is their third recall. Let me write this down. because I forgot to bring up the news article for it. Something that I saw after the show last night. But anyway, this situation with how people are testing things and tests not getting done correctly, or not having places where you can go to get your test done, which is a huge concern here in Colorado. I saw in the news story that Edapure had already gone out and got their own machinery to be able to test the things that they need to test to put their products out. What's frustrating is that a company should have known months and months before we put in these rules that these rules were going into place. They already knew. They were already in the rule process. It's already there. It was not like it was something that just popped up and was like, hey, this is illegal right now, today. You got to switch on from this point. So, I don't know. It's frustrating that a company wouldn't have the forethought to sit down and look through their products and look through their material that they're using and know through sales history that some of these products are going to be on the shelf months after this goes into play. And why are we even letting a date be the decider of how responsible we are with our products and getting out good products to the public? I mean, that's frustrating as a consumer to see a company be a part of that. Blows my mind. And when it comes down to it, it doesn't really make any sense besides you just being irresponsible and possibly lazy. Plus, at the same time, when you've had 3 of them, and I don't know if this one specifically, what this one kind of sounds like, this recall, is that they had another company, because their previous recalls were pretty much the same company that they got materials from. And those should have been packaged together, because they should have looked back at every single product that they released through this company, taken their products, figured it out somehow, wherever the products went and taken them off the shelves to be tested under your own will, test them, make sure that they're cool, and then put them back on the shelves if you need to. I mean, I don't know if that's possible. It's got to be possible. It's got to be, and if it's not, we got to fix that. Because if a company can't question what they've already put on the shelves, test it, and then re-put it back on, that's got to be a situation. Well, but with weed, you just never know. Especially with the Marijuana Enforcement Division, you just never know. But either way, they should have known that these things were in place. And this third one now coming out, sounding like it's coming from another company, and maybe they are. And this is what I would think, that this company, and they didn't make a comment this round, that they would be taking these products that they've had out before they started testing and doing everything that they can, all due diligence, to get every single one of those products, every single one of those batches tested, and the ones that come back off the shelves. Now, maybe they're doing that, and maybe there's going to be more. And maybe that's why they had this brand new one. It just sucks for them, and they've created a nightmare for themselves that they couldn't package it all together in a one release and one recall. This just looks so shitty and so horrible. And then it brings to mind what other companies are not being as thoughtful and as responsible as they are. I mean, it's scary. Speaking of edibles, we did get our box of edibles from Incredibles. Bike got some, I got some fantastic lanyards we got here. Some lighters. Sweet. And some gummies, an affogato, and white mint. This white mint, oh my goodness. We'll give you feedback here on our I'll give you feedback on our website. I'm going to write a review for all of these products. Let me just say, yesterday I ate the winter mint. I should say, why did I say white mint? I'm on autopilot. I ate the winter mint yesterday. And holy guacamole. This mamma jamma sent me into outer space. So I'm not toking that much weed, and my intake is not like I'm keeping my cannabis, level. It's not like I'm high 24/7. So someone like Bike, this may affect a little bit more. It may affect him on a not so awake type of moments. He's not going to feel the high. It's not going to be noticeable as much as it's helping him behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Because even if you take an edible, it doesn't mean that it's not affecting you at all. It is affecting you. There's other cannabinoids that we don't even necessarily know about right now and how they're affecting you. And then there's other cannabinoids that we do know about that don't get you high, but are still affecting you. So we'll have Micah maybe write a little review, and I'll write a review. We'll get back to you on those. But let me tell you what, I don't even think I could remember the day at a certain point. Seriously, I'm not kidding you that this is probably the highest that I've gotten off of an edible that I can remember. Period. End of story. Maybe like right upper edge, almost shot into outer space, uncomfortable high. Almost there. Those dose recommendations are there for a reason. All right, let's get to news. Just yammering your ear off here. This is one of those shows that we could probably go for like 2 hours. Today in news, we got Mexico continues legalization debate. Minnesota adds severe pain to medical marijuana list. Cannabis breathalyzer. Border Patrol sued over the right to carry medical marijuana. And newspapers violating federal law for allowing cannabis ads. First story I got up for you, obviously this one that we've been following for a little while. Mexico to open landmark marijuana debate in January. This specific story coming from Yahoo News, which probably is from the Associated Press feed. Open News. Part of my reason why that I also discuss with people and argue with people that I understand that the media controls thought a lot of the time, but it's not something that they're trying to do in like a horrible way. You know what I'm saying? Because I've worked in one of the largest newsrooms here in North America. I don't know. I've never been overseas, so I don't know what the newsrooms are like over there. It's probably not too big in some areas like Iran. It's more of like those are the bad news. You think news is bad here and they're trying to control you? Go to North Korea or something like that. But I've worked with people and I've worked with the systems, and it's just people are writing what they're being told by police officers, by law enforcement everywhere, military, whoever. Now, if those people are spinning it and doing their thing, which I'm sure they are, then it's all a lot of the time is we're reporting shiz. And the reason why some other shiz doesn't get reported is because it may not be regional. It may be not a national news story, even though you think it is. I'm sorry if I'm offending you right now, but God, I hate it when people say like the news is just so horrible and fucking the mainstream news media. If you have a problem with the mainstream news media and the way that they present news and cover news, then start looking at lower level news, regional news. Don't go to the, God, when I say that, I don't mean go to the smaller websites that are just some dude sitting on his couch writing conspiracy theories and stuff like that. No, I'm talking about people that are actually out in the world giving feedback and knowledgeable references that are smart and educated and well vetted. Not Vice. AKA not Vice. It's just difficult. It's difficult for, someone that's like 20, 25 years old to sit here and think of this huge conspiracy that they're going to control minds with and put it out on the Associated Press, and everybody in the world pick it up and go, oh, hey, mind control. Well, I guess that's what mind control is. Let's focus a little bit more today. How about that? Mexico will embark in January on a national debate on overhauling its marijuana laws, the government said Wednesday, weeks after the Supreme Court opened up the door to legalizing pot. The court's landmark rule in November forced President Enrique Peña Nieto and Congress to consider reforming marijuana laws in a country that has endured years of battle against drug violence. When Peña Nieto reiterated his opposition to decriminalizing pot, he eradicated that his screen's all fuzzy. Hold on, I gotta make it bigger. Sometimes the Chromebook screen's not as good as other screens because it's a little bit cheaper of a unit. But that's neither here nor there. Peña Nieto reiterated his opposition to decriminalizing pot. He indicated that his government could be open to changing laws depending on the outcome of the debate. Peña Nieto said his children have asked him, "Hey, Dad, does that mean that we will soon be able to smoke a joint in front of you?" All right, you want to talk about the spin and the way maybe some of these leaders could be mind controlling the people. Here's definitely one of them. So how many people are going to actually sit down and believe maybe it did happen? Maybe his children sat in front of him and were like, "Hey, can we smoke a joint in front of you, Papa?" Jeez. He said that even his children have asked him, "Hey, Dad, does this mean we will soon be able to smoke a joint in front of you?" He replied, "No, don't be confused. A debate has started." Oh, my God. The most manufactured and cheesy, ridiculous statement I've read in a long time. He also said in his speech, "I'm in favor of the debate so that the experts on the topic can give us more clarity about where we should be heading, whether we should maintain the prohibitionist system or establish a regulation for certain use of marijuana." Peña Nieto said the Supreme Court authorized a group of 4 people to grow and consume their own marijuana for recreational use, creating a potential precedent for others seeking similar permits. The government will launch a website, and I don't see where it actually doesn't set a precedent. I'm not completely familiar with Mexican law, but I have no clue, and there's nothing indicating in any news story or anywhere where this didn't set a precedent. Where these 4 people that just used recreational cannabis and grew cannabis got in trouble and then said, "It's our liberty and our rights to be able to use cannabis," and that she just went all the way to the Supreme Court in Mexico, and the Supreme Court was like, "Yeah, you do. No problem." What the fuck? That's why this is such a big news story. This is such an interesting story for everybody. Because, Jeebus, why can't, then what's to stop any other Mexican citizen from going and saying, "This is my right, bitch. Can't stop me." Well, you think you are? I changed up the beds a little bit today. Vibe's a little bit weird. It's a little bit different right now. I feel like getting up and doing a dance. Or throwing on some black lights. Holy cow. Government is going to launch a website in the beginning of 2016 that will publish scientific and academic papers to provide information on the topic to the public, said Interior Minister Miguel Angel Osorio Chong. His last name's Chong. That's just funny to have a name like Minister Miguel Angel Osorio Chong. A series of public debates will begin in the 3rd week of January. I'm glad my name is about as vanilla as you could get. I mean, how much more normal can you get besides John Doe? That's about the most normal you can get. But my name, Tim Martin. Hey, damn. Pretty damn simple. Timberly Michelle Martin. Timothy Michael Martin. A series of public debates going to begin the 3rd week of January with medical and legal experts as well as academic members and civil society to discuss the implications of marijuana use. He also told at his news conference, "To be effective, we must consider the different alternatives as well as the costs, benefits, and viability of each of them and their impact on the population. Mexico will have to decide in the next months which policy it would need to face. It will need to face a phenomenon that affects different areas and aspects of lives of millions of Mexicans." That bed's got to go too. God. I'm not a big fan of a lot of dance music, but I'm especially not a big fan of something like that. All right, I'm sorry. I'll stop. 5 debates going to be held in different regions of the country between January and March. This is big news. This is really cool. This is something interesting. At least Mexico is trying to do this. Even Mexico might even beat Canada to the punch. The fuck are you doing up there, Canada? Get on your brand new elected prime minister who seems to be having a great time. Bunch of parties. I seen him dancing in some videos the other day. How do you get on this mamma jamma? Didn't you say the reason why he was elected because he legalized pot? I think it's because of how conservative you guys became and what direction it was moving in that conservative direction. And they were like, "Oh, fuck this couch. We got to go way back on the other side of things and go with Justin Trudeau. Side on the lighter side of things. Get away from this dark side.
Luke, I am your father.
Worst imitation ever. But dude, like 16 days, Star Wars is going to be out. I just wanted to remind you of that. That's a big thing. Supporters argue that decriminalizing cannabis would strip drug cartels of a major source of revenue and reduce violence that has killed tens of thousands of people. I don't know how they say tens of thousands of people. It's it's hundreds of thousands of people. I cannot agree with the assumption that they will make it easier to combat organized crime, Peña Nieto said. Legalizing weed, that is. But this is huge. It's a huge news story for Mexico. And as we just mentioned, beating us to the punch, beating Canada to the punch. And what you can maybe glean off of it, one thing that comes out of it is showing how much damage the drug war has done to that country, what it's created, and how desperate they are for a solution turning to legalization, which is the last thing in the world that they ever wanted to do. Saying that, hey, maybe not having legalization, maybe not having some sort of regulation on these drugs and a business with it is creating this underground network because it's going to be there whether we make it illegal or not. People are still going to want to use drugs, period, end of story. Since the beginning of man, the beginning of time, people have always wanted to alter their state of mind. And I don't think until we reach that enlightened age I get into yesterday, which, god damn it, why can't I live in the enlightened age? Until we get to that point in time, people are always going to want to use some sort of drug. And there'll probably be some weird soma at that point in time that people will be able to take too. What is that soma from? Big Brother? What's that? From a book about the government controlling things and a society being placated. I seem to remember this plot from high school or something, from a story I had read. Anyway, it is fantastic. It's crazy that it's happening in New Mexico, but it's not crazy once you start to think about it and how much they've suffered with the drug war. It makes sense. It really does. It makes perfect sense that they would be going this direction. And it'll be crazy if it actually does happen before. And it sounds like it is going to. It really does. It sounds like that the Supreme Court decision just flipped the books with everything. Because as I'm talking to you and as I'm saying that I don't see why other people can't stand in front of the Supreme Court, stand in front of law enforcement and challenge the laws too to say, hey, if these 4 people, there's nothing special about them besides they wanted to use cannabis, period, end of story, and they thought it was their right, I feel the same way. Does your couch have cushions? Because I want to go fuck it right now. I like my new cushions reference. It's fantastic. It's a great reference. But really cool. So, a huge story. Make sure we'll follow that one, and we will. Minnesota health officials have decided to allow residents with chronic pain to buy medical marijuana starting in August. Big moves for Minnesota also. This is great news for people there. A state official briefed on a decision confirmed by the Associated Press on a condition of anonymity because he wasn't authorized to comment ahead of its official announcement. Health Commissioner Ed Ellinger announced the decision Wednesday at a news conference, though. Ellinger called it the right and compassionate choice to give a new hope to suffering patients. The relative scarcity of firm evidence made a difficult decision. However, given the strong medical focus of Minnesota's medical cannabis program and the compelling testimony of hundreds of Minnesotans, it became clear that the right and compassionate choice was to add intractable pain to the program's list of qualifying conditions. This gives new options for clinicians and new hope for suffering patients. The expansion is expected to drastically increase the number of patients in the program, which has low enrollment due to part in its strict rules, which is why this big news for Minnesota. A panel of medical experts cautioned against it. Members of the public overwhelmingly backed chronic pain. Also, this is key, and something they may not be thinking about with this whole situation is that in some of these areas that have limited ability for patients to be able to sign on to the medical cannabis program, the prices of your meds, the prices of whatever it is you're trying to get are possibly and probably going to be a lot higher than in places like here in Colorado or in California, where you have a ton of patients and people can actually lower those prices because they're moving a lot of units. Places like Minnesota, Illinois, even specifically, these places are going to have higher cost because there's just not enough people to be able to buy them. It's not enough demand to lower the cost on it. And generally, where some of the more stricter rules are, they're not very supportive of cannabis in the first place. So prices, because of demand and because of the risk of people there, prices are still pretty high. You still got $400, $500, $600 ounces. Not 600, I don't think, in a lot of places anymore, but $400 or $500 ounces. FARC in California, I mean, I guess to play devil's advocate with what I'm saying, in California, granted it's super high-grade, quote-unquote, medicine, I mean, you got grams of freaking terps going for $120. The only thing that this is you just add it to your shatter or whatever. $120, you got $80 grams of like shatter, nug run. Just think if you're buying that $120 and then doing the illegal thing and shipping it out of state, how much you're going to charge for that in another place. I mean, someone in another place actually going to pay, $200-$300 for that little unit, that gram of tastefulness? And yes, they will. Because I've seen the type of glass that people pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for. Disposable income in this industry is pretty big, especially in states where it's still illegal and it's still a heavy underground. I mean, if you ever want to get an idea of how much cannabis is actually being grown by, especially quote-unquote Trustafarian type people, which, I mean, they have their own... what am I thinking of? The Trustafarians have their own source of income. We all know that. But then there's like the wooks that grow and are pretty successful at growing, that grow a huge amount. I don't know how to describe them. That's the only way to describe them. But anyway, these type of people have a large cash sum at their disposal generally. So the amount of money that they throw down on glass, the amount of money that they throw down on weed or making their hash, or the terps that are in California, it's just freaking insane. So you may grow on a small scale and you're like, I don't get that type of disposable cash. But there's people out there, trust me. Like I said, look no farther than the glass industry, and no farther than paying $120 for terps. Or if you're out of state, $300 a gram or something like that. Which I've never actually heard something going for $300 a gram, but I'm sure it happens. Especially with these, if it even makes it out of the state. I can't even see these terps making it out of state. It's on such limited production. They're not available like shatter is. It's not available like, walking into the store and buying flour or something like that. Soon, someday, it will be. We got to do, man sues Border Patrol over the right to carry medical marijuana. A man is suing the U.S. Border Patrol, alleging agents are failing to adhere to a new rule to allow him to carry medical marijuana without risk of federal charges. Raimundo Marufo, I think that's how you say his last name, probably not though, who participated in the New Mexican medical marijuana program, filed the lawsuit Monday in federal court seeking an injunction against the U.S. Border Patrol in connection with questions the agency posed to travelers at border checkpoints. Marufo's attorney writes that he must routinely travel from Deming to Las Cruces to obtain medical cannabis. This is, by the way, in New Mexico. I think we made that clear if it wasn't clear. Which requires passing through a U.S. Border Patrol checkpoint on Interstate 10 on his return trip. Federal agents ask him whether he has any illegal drugs, posing a dilemma for Marufo because marijuana is still a controlled substance under federal law. And remember, these are federal agents. If he answers yes, he is a drug smuggler subject to federal indictment, the court complaint says. But if Marufo answers no, he could still be guilty of lying to a federal agent, according to court records. Flores Williams contends Marufo's future is at risk every time he passes through a Border Patrol checkpoint with his medical marijuana. A federal distribution charge could result in up to 7 years in prison, along with other penalties, such as a person's car being confiscated. His lawyer said he doesn't know if his life, for all intents and purposes, is going to end that day. Flores Williams said in an interview Tuesday, which is his lawyer, Marufo's complaint contends that federal provisions called the Rohrabacher Amendment, contained a 2015 Appropriations Act, which he was in of 2015's Appropriation Act. Makes it illegal for the U.S. Department of Justice to enforce laws that interfere with state statutes that allow the use, distribution, possession, and cultivation of medical marijuana. So basically, the 2015 Rohrabacher Amendment saying that told the government to back off, that no longer was this going to be a priority at all. In fact, we're not even going to go after you. Which should be binding, but so many different bosses and so many different statements that have been made, being passed down on the line. It's like Reagan economics. It doesn't work. It doesn't trickle down to the bottom of the people. Whether in a sense, and the people that are enforcing the laws are the most important to get through their minds, to get for us to say and for them to get to understand, hey, this is not how things are going to go. This is not how we're going to do it anymore. Doesn't matter if the lawmakers decide it. If the people enforcing it still aren't doing it, then we're still fucked. Whether it is a sense of entitlement, indifference, or simply ignorance by the law, the court must immediately issue an injunction enjoining the United States Border Patrol from asking questions and conducting searches that violate the Rohrabacher Amendment. The Border Patrol didn't respond to a request for comment. New Mexico's medical marijuana statute, known as the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act, took effect in 2007. As we talked with our good friend Mr. Love about on the show here, recently had a conversation with him about their program, the restrictions that are included in that cannabis program, including access for patients having to go to like Walmart or McDonald's to meet their dealers there, having to travel long distances. It's just a ridiculous situation. Horrible situation. Lawsuit trying to correct that situation right now. Seizure but not prosecution. State Representative Bill McCanley from Las Cruces last year asked the U.S. Attorney's Office in Albuquerque about the department's policy for enforcing federal drug laws in connection with state medical marijuana patients traveling through Border Patrol. U.S. Attorney responded to him saying his office gathered guidelines in a 2013 document from the Department of Justice known as the Cole Memo in deciding which cases to prosecute. The guidelines included preventing drug driving and preventing state-authorized marijuana activity from being used as a cover or pretext for the trafficking or other illegal drugs or other illegal activity. Convoluted. He also wrote, the office has not prosecuted medical marijuana patients found in possession of small amounts of marijuana at border checkpoints. This also goes hand in hand with something we've talked about in Texas, is that there, maybe I didn't mention this story on JDR. Maybe it was one that was a while ago. But in Texas, there's basically a town where the Border Patrol, because a certain level, if I can get the story right, if it's under a certain amount, the Border Patrol was letting these people go. And it was costing too much to basically hold them in a jail. There wasn't enough room in the jail, so they're basically letting people go that had small amounts of marijuana. Or what they were really trying to do is turn them over to the sheriff's department. But the Border Patrol was not paying the sheriff's department to be able to house these people or prosecute them. They were just handing them over. So the sheriff's department at this point in time was like, fuck that, we're not going to do anything. So these people were being busted with a certain amount, having their shiz confiscated, and then just being released because nobody was prosecuting it. Which is crazy. I'll have to dig back on that news story, try and find that for a future episode, because really it's interesting that the Border Patrol will be in that situation, and interesting that because it was such a small sheriff's office, it's such a small area for them to house drug people in, and they had so many illegal immigrants that they would refuse the cannabis people or the drug people that were being turned over. And that goes hand in hand with what this last statement was in this story, that our office has not prosecuted medical marijuana patients found in possession of small amounts of marijuana at border checkpoints. It's not just medical marijuana patients, because this is in Texas we had talked about. Martinez noted, however, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, under which Border Patrol is organized, is a part of the larger U.S. Department of Homeland Security, not the Department of Justice. So the Cole memo does not apply. Bing! That says a lot. That explains a lot there. Certain agencies, including the CBP, require their offices to seize any marijuana they come across while acting in the scope of their official duties because federal crime statutes prohibit the possession of marijuana, regardless of quantity. Some medical marijuana patients have reported that their medicinal supply is being seized by agents when passing through checkpoints. He said that it appears to be hit and miss depending on the federal personnel on duty, but he says the possibility for federal agents to seize a patient's marijuana remains, even though federal prosecutors have said they won't prosecute medical cannabis. The really silly part is that they're spending money on this and the resources that are going into it, and nobody's going to get prosecuted because the U.S. Attorney's Office are all under the Department of Justice, and they're not going to prosecute anybody. It's just what I was talking about, the situation in Texas. If you're not going to find somebody to prosecute you, is all you're doing is wasting money on the people that are enforcing it. This is a cool little beat. I like this one. Hit it right in the hole. Side pocket. Thanks for listening to the John Doe Radio Show. We're live Monday through Friday, 6 o'clock. It's just fun to talk radio over a fantastic beat. God, we're really being cheesy and off topic today. It's good times. Except for the beginning. That was just kind of downer. Sorry about that. Actually, I'm not sorry. People that shot up people should be sorry. Fuck that. Federal checkpoints between Interstate 10 between Las Cruces and Deming on Interstate 25 in New Mexico, Highway 85 in Las Cruces and Hatch, and on U.S. Highway 70 between Las Cruces and Alamogordo. I've never gone through a U.S. Border Patrol checkpoint besides crossing over into Juarez. And that was like a long time ago. So what came as a surprise to me like 5 years ago or something like that, when I first, I guess, remember knowing about a border checkpoint inside the U.S. borders. You know what I'm saying? Like, not just close to the border, but inside the dang old, a good space inside the U.S. border. Why do these things even exist at that point? Another situation where we could probably do away with that type of policing. I mean, I'm just saying. Asked to respond to the argument that Border Patrol isn't subject to the same guidelines as the Department of Justice, the attorney said two entities are dependent upon one another. The police do what they want, and the Border Patrol agents do what they do as the first step in the chain that ends up giving to prosecutors who do what they do. A lot of people doing what they do in this. Without police and Border Patrol agents, there are no prosecutors, and without prosecutors, okay, that was not needed inside this news article. Let's skip this, and this. The dude isn't seeking a monetary award in the lawsuit, just clarification of the rules. I think that's fair. Anybody would say that fair? Something else I came across in the news today and have been watching for, I don't know how long it's been out, for like the past few months or so, 6 months or maybe longer than that. But there's possibly this freaking breathalyzer thing coming out for cannabis patients. And specifically, it will be used for drug driving cases. So if you're out and about, and I'm sure Colorado officers would be getting these things. If they're released and it's approved for use, Colorado officers will be the first ones to sign up for this shiz. And I can't believe that the science is all. This is basically just like giving you a blood test and you come back at like 25 nanograms per milliliter. And yeah, that probably says that you've recently smoked. You're probably pretty high at that point in time. 20, 30 milligrams per milliliter. I would think that you would be feeling it high. Now, whether that's a normal level for you and you're maintaining at that level, but that's a pretty stony level. That's usually what people are testing right after they smoke. Now, if it's a situation to where you're at 15, maybe you're a normal smoker and you haven't smoked for a few hours, it could be down to 15, could be down to 10. But for someone that doesn't smoke at all, maybe they've gone a few days, not even worried about a whole drug driving situation, but they get a drug test, comes back as like 1 nanogram per milliliter, the limit's 0.5, and they're prosecuted for it. This is, in my opinion, this has got to be the same type of thing as that, to where you pulled over on the side of the road, it spits out a number, and that number is supposed to say if you're high or not, but in reality, as we've mentioned many times before, and as I proved yesterday, cannabis affects everybody differently, and especially at different points in time, whether you've not smoked for a long time, whether you smoke all the time, if you're a big dude, if you're a tall dude, if you're a skinny dude, your metabolism, all that stuff. It all goes into play with whether or not you're under the influence enough to operate machinery, period, end of story. It's not a situation to where you're going and smoking a couple bong hits and it's like you're drunk and your senses aren't there and you absolutely can't function. There may be times with that for some people, and that's a situation where, yes, you do need to be responsible. And if you cause an accident in that situation, that's what's scary. That's what we have to figure out. It's because we have to not only protect the people that haven't smoked for days and protect them from punishment and basically protect them from unfair and dual punishment, and protecting the people that are in the way of people that are maybe a little bit too impaired. Because here's the deal. It's not that often, but there are cases for people that are just starting to smoke or aren't used to smoking where they get too high to be able to operate machinery. To get into a vehicle and drive somewhere, it's not a situation that people should do. Some people should do. I mean, it happens. And to not admit it and to not say that it does happen is kind of irresponsible. But saying that at the same time, on a responsible angle, we have to make sure that we protect the people that doesn't happen to. It's not like alcohol. You can't just sit here and get a breathalyzer and it's like, no matter who you are as a person, if you've drank this much, you are completely FUBAR and not with it. You should be dead right now, dude. I mean, seriously, you should be dead. No, it's not like that with cannabis. An Oakland company working with scientists from the University of California at Berkeley is claiming a breakthrough in the race to develop an instant roadside marijuana breathalyzer. Hounds Labs, whose device is also uniquely designed to double up as an alcohol breathalyzer, is among a handful of companies and researchers hoping to capitalize on increasingly relaxed marijuana laws in the United States. Hound Labs said on Wednesday it has found an accurate way to measure THC, the psychoactive component in cannabis, within 1 or 2 blows. The portable device is designed to help determine if the driver is impaired from recent marijuana use. Another case where this is kind of scary and a situation with how accurate really is this. If you have swabs, when I was on probation, my felony probation, I could smoke cannabis because I was a medical marijuana patient when I first was busted, and this is in the early years, before they had even made any rules about this. I was one of the first cases for this shiz to happen to. They had no clue what the fuck to do. They're scared of being sued. They're scared of being run after, themselves losing their jobs because they make a bad decision regarding the policies of whatever, specifically the courts in this situation. But allowing me to use cannabis, and I was used as a guinea pig a couple times for these mouth swabs that they had. So basically, dudes knew I was coming high to my probation appointments because I was basically smoking 24/7 at that point in time, facing jail time. Specifically at this point, facing jail time in the early beginning time of my, well, not necessarily facing jail time, but either way, when I was on probation, and I had sat down with these dudes and explained to them, yeah, I get high, I'm high all the time. You can see that I'm high. I probably smell like weed a lot of the time when in there because I was in a fuck this couch type of mood. I didn't really give a damn about anything other than feeling normal at the time and feeling like I need to get past this anxiety that I have because I've just been busted for a felony. And specifically even before, like I was saying, before I was on probation, but still, you know what, you're out on bail. I guess that's the specific point in time that I'm trying to get to here. You just have that horrible deep down feeling that you're going to go away, you're going to get raped in prison, and there's nothing that you can do about it. So at the time, I wasn't drinking. I hated alcohol at this point in time. Luckily, thank God. Otherwise, I may have actually died from, being one of those people with, like, blowing a blood test or blowing a breathalyzer, and it's like, dude, you should be dead right now. How much alcohol have you had? But I was not drinking at that time, but I was trying to definitely smoke as much as I possibly could. So these people at the probation office would sit me down. They'd be like, all right, we have these new swabs we want to use, and we want to know how accurate with them. Number one, the fact that they know that they're inaccurate and not going to tell you what you need to know all the time and fark up the test, false positives, or not, in most cases, not coming up positive, even though you have smoked. That simple fact right there, they shouldn't be using that. There should be no guesses involved with punishing someone through the justice system. Period. End of story. And there is when it comes to those swabs. But I'd sit down with him, and he'd be like, let me use this swab on you. Have you used cannabis within the past 24 hours? I was like, bitch, I've used it in the past 2 minutes, right before I came in here. Deal with your ass. And they do the swab, and then the motherfucker came back like over 50% of the time. I think they did like 4 or 5 times, and I think it was 2 tests came back as being negative, when in fact it was like, dude, I'm high as a motherfucking K right now. How's your test coming back negative? And I think it led to them completely dropping these swabs from use, because if word got out that shit has happened, and we could test that, and we could prove that you were actually punishing people for something that, or you weren't punishing people for. Anyway, Jesus Christ, getting lost in my stories here. It would suck for them if they tested people and didn't get to punish them, I guess is what I was saying. All right, we got a few more stories for you here. Why not? The U.S. Postal Service in Portland is delivering some potentially bad news last week to newspapers. If news outlets run ads from the region's booming marijuana industry, they might be violating federal law. The Friday memo pointed out that it was illegal to place an ad in any publication with the purpose of seeking or offering illegally to receive, buy, or distribute a Schedule I controlled substance, according to a copy sent out to editor-publisher of the Chinook Observer in Long Beach, Washington. If an advertisement advocates the purchase of clinical marijuana through a medical marijuana dispensary, it does not comply with the law. The memo quickly caused confusion and concern among publishers whose newspapers have published ads for dispensaries and manufacturers in the region, now 2 legal cannabis industries, medical and recreational marijuana. While Oregon voters legalized marijuana in 1998 and recreational for adult use in 2014, plant is still illegal on a federal level. Any newspaper with pot ads would violate any federal law preventing advertising for illicit goods, the Post Services said. This would be an absolute huge First Amendment fight. I don't think the government would win this one. That's probably why it hasn't happened here in Colorado. And I'm pretty sure, yes, here in Colorado, they tried to prevent certain ads from being placed into publications, and High Times went through the roof. Westward went through the roof, talking about how this was absolutely insane. And it's not like High Times hasn't been operating for years and years and years. And as I'm sure some of you can remember, if you're that old, during the cocaine years, High Times used to have some shiz for cocaine. I've looked back at through some of these old ads that they had. Freaking crazy, weird spoons and weird sifters and all this other shit. I'm like, what the fuck do you need this for? I don't know. Never done cocaine. Never dealt cocaine. It's crazy to me. These weird sniffing things. I'm like, what the fuck? This was actually in High Times before? This is crazy. But it's true. So I'm thinking if places didn't necessarily be busted for that or are in trouble for those, then these guys are safe to challenge. And I'm sure that's what'll happen. Get the fuck out of here. You're not going to do this to us. Postmaster in Long Beach delivered the news to the Observer and declined to comment on the memo, which he called a reminder of existing federal law and was not a directive. That's because you're going to get slapped, bitch, if you even try and push this. The First Amendment fight in this would be they would lose. It would be a knockout. First round, under 5 seconds, boom, you're down. It wasn't clear what provoked the reminder. A U.S. Postal Service spokesman only cited the federal law mentioned in the memo. Forrester said he contacted officers of Senator Ron Wyden and Representative Earl Blumenauer, both Oregon Democrats who are avid supporters of medical legalization efforts, and is waiting to hear back. Staff members from Blumenauer and Wyden confirmed the offices talked on the phone, and the U.S. Postal Service included in that conversation to hear more about the issue. They say they have asked for clarification from the agency on what appears to be outdated interpretation of the law. Both the senator and congressman expect an explanation as soon as possible and are committed to working toward a resolution that reflects on a decision made by their constituents at the ballot box to legalize or regulate marijuana. What this news story fails to say is that it may be a constitutional right. Let's skip this. Heeb said, although the newspaper publishers group is looking for legal clarity on the issue, she's having members not run marijuana ads if they use Postal Service for some delivery, fearing the U.S. Postal Service could seize all papers. Well, dude, that's a horrible... No news publication should bend at the knees to a situation like this. Okay, if it's preventing you from putting advertising that's legal inside your newspaper specifically, and a large part of your success from a newspaper comes from that, and it's a First Amendment issue, period. You got to put it in there. It's advertising. It's a product that's legal for people to buy. People can look at that, can gain knowledge from that, and better their direction of how they want to ingest something. It's absolutely insane to be able to say that it's not a constitutional violation. And two, the other thing that you fight people on is if somebody's trying to tell you what not to put on your newspaper and it's a federal government, that's something that's obviously a violation of federal constitutional rights, and you got to go after. I see no difference a lot of the time between the articles that are put in the newspaper and the advertising that are put in the newspaper. Because a lot of the times when it comes down to the law, there isn't a difference. Farking asshats. And I think that's all I got for today. Fantastic day full of sweet electronic music. It was good. Anyway, hope you had a fantastic time here with us on the John Doe Radio Show. An official review for these incredible products will be coming out. But my first statement on these is if you're looking for something that is tasty, that you can get medicated on, that's a legitimate product from a good company, I'm confident that Incredibles would not put themselves in the type of situation to where they would have some of these recalls because of specifically pesticide, I'm saying. And it's just overall a trustworthy product. And to me, that's the most important thing when it comes to edibles. If I can trust this edible to be consistent and to be a good product and have quality material inside of it. Slight oily cannabis taste on the winter mint that I had, which is usually not my favorite at all and usually prevents me from being able to down an entire edible as if it has an all weedy taste. But this is not bad at all. It's not bad at all. It's there, and you can tell. And some people around me, some family members were like, took a big whiff of it once I opened the package and could smell the cannabis inside the package. But hey, that's how you know it's medicated, right? And when it comes down to it, I don't think anything that's properly medicated doesn't have that sort of slight little taste to it. But like I said, it's usually something that I can't get down if it's bad. And I ate this I ate the whole thing over like a 4-hour period. I thought it was like coming down at a certain point, and then like 15 minutes later, it was like, oh no, I am not coming down. It was awesome. I had some crazy back spasms yesterday too, and it completely took those away. Relaxation, everything, pretty much knocked me out. Good times. So make sure you check out Incredibles. Also check out weedbiz.net, our good friends over there. Holler at Your Graphics, URGRAFIX, online at Facebook, URGRAFIX, and holler at our friends, the JDR News sponsors, brought to you by, John Radio is brought to you by our good sponsors over at USA Cannabis Consulting. Holler at them if you need a consultant. USACannabisConsulting.com. All right, have yourself a fantastic afternoon, evening, whenever you're listening to this version of the JDR. Thank you for listening to us. Have a good time. I picture some, like, active stoner downloading us and, like, I don't know, for some reason, running on a treadmill. I don't know why it's a treadmill. It should be somebody running on a trail, eating some granola as they stop to take a break from their hike or trail. But maybe you are. Maybe you're an active stoner. Or maybe you're just someone sitting down pressing rosin, laughing at how goofy I am and how redonkulous this is. Either way, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm glad you got something from us. Tell me to meet again tomorrow. I'm Tim. See ya.
Informational and entertainment purposes only. We specifically include responsible marijuana reform. Rights. Listening to anyone but your mother is just being stupid. We accept no responsibility for your actions or misrepresentations, and we do not fully endorse the use of illegal drugs. You are ultimately responsible for yourself.
Live.
Waka waka.